Hello and welcome to the All Monitor Brief. It's Friday, May 24th. I'm Kristen Tallman. Today's main segment is an interview with Joyce Karam, All Monitor's senior news editor and a beloved face in our newsroom. Every week, Joyce tracks the relationship between China and the Middle East. This week, she wrote on how Beijing is viewing the transition period in Iran after the death of President Ebrahim Raisi. But first, let's get you caught up on the headlines. The annual Jewish pilgrimage to Tunisia's island of Jerba began Friday with low turnout amid heightened security concerns after a deadly attack last year and as the Israel-Hamas war rages in Gaza. Refugees from Lebanon's war-torn neighbor Syria increasingly face a dilemma. Should they stay and contend with stricter measures and growing anti-Syrian sentiment, or should they return home and risk poverty and repression? Saudi Arabia is moving aggressively with its investments in more gaming companies. The kingdom has already been spending heavily with a $38 billion push into gaming under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 program. The Israeli military announced Friday morning that the bodies of 3 hostages held in Gaza have been brought back to Israel overnight. Israeli forces carried out strikes on Gaza and battled militants on the ground Friday. The top United Nations court on Friday will rule on a plea by South Africa to order a halt to the Israeli military offensive in Gaza. And the world cannot look to UN peacekeepers as a way of stopping war, whether in Gaza or other active conflict zones, the UN Undersecretary General for Peace Operations said. Now, on to the main segment. Hey, Joyce. Welcome to the All Monitor Brief.
Hey, thanks, Kristen.
So, Joyce, during Ebrahim Raisi's time in office, China deepened its relationship with Iran. And now, as the race for the next president continues with less than 50 days to go, what will China be looking for? I mean, do they want a similar partner, or what is the view from Beijing?
No, for sure. I mean, during Raisi's time, we've seen China emerge as actually a peace broker in the Middle East for the first time. If you remember, with the 2023 landmark deal that China brokered between Saudi Arabia and Iran, that was only 4 weeks after Raisi's state visit to China. So there is no question that Raisi was a good friend of China. Raisi helped steer Iran's pivot to the east, helped enforce the China, Iran, Russia axis. I mean, Kristen, remember that 90% of Iranian oil goes to China. Sometimes the U.S. sanctions do not apply here, and Chinese companies have increasingly sought business in Iran. Infrastructure projects, stadiums, trade, that's all happening. What does this mean with Raisi gone? Not much, really, because the China-Iran relations were very good prior to Raisi's coming to power in 2021 and are expected to continue with that same steam after. So when it looks at the presidential race, and we still don't know exactly who are the main contenders, but even if it's somebody like Kalibaf, this is someone who is former Speaker of the Parliament. He is somebody who is close to China. Ali Shamkhani, this is somebody who negotiated with the Saudis in China. If we talk about Jawad Zarif, the former foreign minister, his name is being circulated as well. This is a guy who also negotiated a 25 years strategic agreement between Iran and China. So overall, China is in a good place here to maintain its partnership with Iran. The only caveat here is what happens inside Iran. Questions about instability, questions about, Khamenei's succession. And this is where not just China, but other global powers will be looking to assess the next steps in Iran.
Fascinating. Okay, so there should just be a continuation of what it has been, and the only concern would really be if internally a strife emerges. Exactly. And many other countries have been concerned when it comes to Iranian relations as the state empowers the military arm IRGC and supports groups such as the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah. Is a strong Iranian military a concern for China or something that they would want to tamper down?
So, not so much a concern. It's only a concern when it gets in the way of, let's say, China's trade into the region, maritime navigation, as we've seen with the Houthis' attacks on ships in the Red Sea during the ongoing war in Gaza. For China, it's very transactional in how it does business with Iran and how it does business with Arab states. So when it comes to Iran's support of militant groups in the region, China only steps in if its interests are at risk. We saw with the Houthis, China and Russia, as Bloomberg reported, go directly to the Iranian proxy in Yemen and strike a deal with them not to attack Chinese ships. When it comes to Hezbollah or other groups in Iraq, that has not gotten in the way of China doing business, whether in Lebanon, whether in Iraq, with the governments that are close to Iran as well. So I think, having said that, there's one question for China, and how is the power struggle will shape inside Iran. So where will the IRGC fit in a post-Khamenei power structure? And this is where China is trying to learn better the ropes within the IRGC to get more acquainted, say, with somebody like Mushtaba. He's Khamenei's son, and now a favorite to come to power, where his father to pass away. So these are the issues that China is trying to navigate. But as far as Beijing and how it does politics in the Middle East, it rarely gets in the weeds of support for armed groups or issues like this. It does its own interest, transactional, and it favors stability, of course. It favors a strong state structure, but its priority is drive its own interest and do a transactional policy with different players.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it out a little bit. I mean, in terms of China's relationship with the wider region, what deals or visits has Beijing sought to grow over the past few weeks?
Oh, so many. I mean, we do the deals and the visits section every week in the newsletter, and it's really fascinating to see how many fields is China getting into. So even when you look at Huawei, they're investing now in Egypt. They've expanded in Saudi Arabia. Egypt was just this week. When you look at the EV, the electric vehicles sector, China was showcasing its brands at a big UAE summit this week, the Electric Vehicle Innovation Summit in Abu Dhabi. So this is all plays into China's strength in doing trade in the region, but also when it comes to energy cooperation, visits. We've seen a Turkish delegation this week in China, and they did reach energy deals between the two. We're seeing also more Chinese transportation deals with countries like Algeria. And we're seeing also Beijing showing more interest in places like Libya. So Beijing has very much expanded its business network and commercial network in the region. It does very well in trade in the Gulf, leading trading partner for Saudi Arabia, for example, but it's also emerging more in areas where there's conflict, such as Libya, Syria, Iraq, other places where China doesn't shy away from doing business as long as it's it fits its interests. So we'll be looking for more deals in the weeks to come.
Thanks so much, Joyce.
Thank you.
That's it for today, May 24th. You can read all these stories and more impacting the region at allmonitor.com.